party debate to decode all that the union budget has announced for housing. Well, affordable housing was definitely the buzzword of budget 2017. My question, will these changes, biggest of them being the infrastructure status for affordable housing, actually take the country close to housing for all by 2022 mission? And while that's a supply side problem that the government seems to be keen on cracking, what about the demand for existing housing stock? Does anything in today's budget help lift that mood at all? Let me introduce my panelists to you. NIranjan HIranandani, CMD HIranandani Group, and President Naredco, Bhairav Dalal, Partner Real Estate Tax, PwC India, Vaidyanathan Ramachandran, MD Tata Capital Housing Finance, Gitambar Anand, CMD ATS Infrastructure Limited and President Credai, Anshul Jain, MD India Cushman in Wakefield, and we will also be joined from Bangalore by Irfan Razak, CMD Prestige Group and Chairman Credai. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. I think we will have to assume that people have just queued into the show, and this is what they need to do. Now, infrastructure status for affordable housing, or we will begin with the housing push. Affordable housing projects can be completed over 5 years instead of 3 years. Well, to get the profit break, I think that is the thing that we need to talk about, other than the infrastructure status, which should open up funding for this sector. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana to get 23,000 crore, 1 crore rural houses to be created by 2019. National Housing Bank will refinance individual housing loans of about 20,000 crore. And under the scheme for profit-linked income tax deduction for promotion of affordable housing, carpet area instead of built-up area of 30 and 60 square meter will be counted. 30 square meter limit will apply only in case of municipal limits of 4 metropolitan cities, while the rest of the country, including in the peripheral areas of metros, the limit of 60 square meters will apply. So there's a lot on affordable housing. There's a lot other than affordable housing as well. We'll come to that later. I think let me begin with the first question to Gitambar Anand. Gitambar, are you happy with the budget? You've been with us for all 3 budgets. First budget, euphoric. Second budget, hugely disappointed. Third budget, what's your prediction, or let's say report card on it?
We as an industry, Manisha, are extremely happy with this budget. Let me assure you. You see, we've been telling government that if there is a documented shortage of housing in this country, then you need to enable the supply side. Right. Which will only come in from the private sector, and also you need to enable the buyer. To answer your question about existing stock being bought up, I don't know how many of us actually, nobody has really read into what the Prime Minister announced on the 31st of December when he spoke of an interest subvention for people who have an income up to 18 lakhs and 12 lakhs. That interest subvention, you get that net present value as on date today, which translates to an amount of nearly or maybe even more than 2 lakhs, because today the finance minister said that the subvention will be increased to 20 years, not 15 years. Right. So the net present value for anybody having an income of 18 lakhs and 12 lakhs for different quantums of loan sizes, they will get a gift of 2 lakh rupees. That's the NPV of the subvention that they'll get today on the day they buy that house.
So, Gitambar, what you're saying is that both on the supply and the demand side, for affordable housing at least,
for housing.
Why is it housing? Because here the incomes are not looking very exciting to me.
See, we have to...
I mean, we can come back to the debate later. Let's go to the other panelists. All right, Mr. Razak, you've joined us. What's your verdict on today's budget when it comes to just housing, both supply side and demand side? Have you got the relief that you were looking for?
I think this is a government that acts on what it speaks. There's always been a focus for affordable housing. They have they've clarified and defined what is affordable housing. Like last year when they said 30 square meters and 50 square meters, we all thought it was the carpet, but then it turned out to be built area, and now the government has corrected itself and said it's carpet. So that makes it that much more interesting, because I believe that anybody in a non-metro city, 50 square meter house or 60 square meter house should be the minimum size which has to be affordable, and carpet area is like something like today in terms of overall super built area, what we call will be about 1,000 square feet. So they can get a decent 2-bedroom house, and that's a big given. Plus giving it the infrastructure status is huge. because that will help us get funds cheaper, will help get us funds quicker, and it will also encourage, most importantly, it will encourage everybody. It's an opportunity for all of us to get into this segment, and this is the segment where the volumes are. This is the segment where if you keep building, it will be always evergreen. There will always be no shortage for demand. If you are able to keep our costs in line, if you are able to sort of be very disciplined in keeping our entire costs in order, we will be able to offer to our clients in this segment a very reasonable product which will always be evergreen, and we will be having continuous volumes of sales. So I think it has a two-pronged attack. One side you have the affordability, and the people who need the home will buy the home, and second is for developers like us, it's an opportunity to provide these homes, and also providing this infrastructure status helps a lot.
Helps a lot. All right, so you're saying that developers such as you, who have been mostly in premium and luxury segment, are now compelled to look at this segment very, very seriously. NIranjan HIranandani, come in here. Would you support that argument? Three things: you get the infrastructure status, so funds come to you cheaper, you've got better qualification in terms of unit area, and profit free for 5 years. Big area of new development opening up for private developers across the country.
I think it's a wonderful news. Basically, you have to understand that we have tried for infrastructure status, Manisha, only for 25 years we've been working on it. And it's not only the fact that we will get more bank funds, but it's factor that we get long-term funds. So when we do townships, we were now getting only 5 years and 6 year money. Now we do roads, we do hospitals, we do schools, and all that. We need long-term money for these projects. So infrastructure status will also help us to get for townships long-term money. So that's the number one. Number two issue that we have changed for carpet area, 60 square meters carpet area is a good area. So Mumbai, Delhi, Calcutta, Madras will now have to protest to the finance minister, because if you move little outside Mumbai, maybe Thane, maybe Navi Mumbai, maybe in the peripheral areas, you can have 60 square meters and do affordable housing. So I don't understand this dichotomy. I think we need to say 60 square meters for the entire country, including the metropolitan cities, is a thing which I think with this election happening, we should really fight for. The third major issue which I see is very good as far as that is concerned is the fact that the focus on housing has come about, which is what we were trying. The state governments are still not able to focus on housing. The ready reckoner rate, the taxes, the additional FSI cost and other things are still not happening. So I think it will force the state governments also to fall in line in order to meet the Prime Minister's objectives. So all in all, for housing, for affordable housing, fantastic budget. I'm very thrilled. I came with zero expectations. I've come out very happy.
All right, Anshul Jain, now we have, other than ATS, which has been present in tier 2 cities and affordable housing segments, we've got two of India's largest developers who have done some amount of affordable housing, but really are not known for that. They're known for their other work and outstanding work. Tell me, do you really think that they will now, or they have a compelling enough reason to get into this sector and support that creation of 85 lakh homes a year is what we are talking about in the affordable segment, if you want to meet that mission of housing for all?
See, clearly the incentives are there now, right? So the question is, I think, a huge change in mindset, because if you look for last 10 odd years, India has been focusing, and most of the large developers have been mostly focusing on developing upper middle income and luxury segment, right? So the question is, can you change your mindset completely and move into entirely new territory where you take all these benefits that the government's offering and create a whole a business plan out of it, because it's almost a new business, I would argue, to get into, because it's different price points, it's different way of marketing it, it's possibly new construction technologies, etc. But clearly the incentives are there, and I believe where the incentives are, the entrepreneur goes. So my answer would be yes.
So there is this big point which has been raised, and I am going to now ask Mr. HIranandani this question because Bombay seems to have the biggest trouble, which is finding land for affordable housing. In the pre-budget discussion that I did, I got this straight answer that look, it does not become compelling for us just with a little bit of tinkering of either funds or, you know, the unit size and qualifying differently. You actually need the government to release a lot of land which is affordable. Mr. HIranandani, would you agree with that, that you also need to complete that little bit of missing part for private developers to take or embrace this agenda?
I agree with you, Manisha, 100%. But one thing, let's be clear. Earlier it was metropolitan areas plus 20 kilometers from that. Now they have said only metropolitan areas. So obviously they want the affordable housing segment to come in the peripheral areas because it's not going to come 30 square meters is not the kind of demand which is really there. The 60 square meters carpet area is really the demand even in the affordable segment. So you're going to see affordable segment happening not in Mumbai and Mumbai suburb, but you're going to see it in Thane, Navi Mumbai, Vashi, Panvel, and these areas are going to see a huge increase in the affordable segment, but not in Mumbai, not in the Mumbai suburbs. None of those, especially because the way this drafting takes place, it moves the incentive out in less than 60, higher than 30 square meters. So I think affordable housing issue in Mumbai and also other metropolitan areas is a no-no unless they make the changes. I think being an election year, we should really fight with the government in order to get this done. But having said that, overall the peripheral areas of Mumbai where the land is reasonable as compared to the city limits, I think we should be able to do affordable housing, and that's where the trigger is going to happen for affordable
Fair
housing.
enough. Okay, then my other question is now to the finance people here. Subvention scheme, the credit subvention scheme. Mr. Ramachandran, explain to us, we are all very confused on how this is going to work, who will it really help, is it only going to help, CREDAI came out with a statement that it will help the mid-income group housing. My reading of the situation is that it will actually only help people who are in the lower or economically weaker segments. Please explain to us, how will this work?
I will explain the scheme. The Prime Minister Awas Yojana scheme at present, which is in application now, up to 6 lakhs of rupees, 6.5% for the 15 years period discounted on a present value method. It works out around 2,05,000 to 1,95,000 is the money given whenever any guy booked it, any person booked the flat under the Prime Minister Awas Yojana having an income of 3 lakhs and also having the guidelines of 30 square meter kind of a thing, then he will get on the loan released the first 2 lakhs of rupees, he will get the interest free loan which is given by the finance company, which is getting obtained through the nodal agency, namely National Housing Bank for HFCs. So we have already from Tata Housing, we have granted around 600 peoples. The time taken in granting that kind of a subsidy for the low income group, 3 lakhs income, and those who are not owning a house, there is a self declaration to be given by the customer that he is not owning a house anywhere in India, is the house he is going to own, and in that circumstances we get the subsidy through the National Housing Bank, which is the nodal agency. We grant around 60 to 90 days time, the customer account gets credited. It's a well-oiled scheme working. From Tata Capital, we have given around 600 customers so far, and it's mainly meant for the low income group to avail it. Those who are not having shelter at present are able to have a shelter, and the rate of interest was they pay 9%, 10% kind of a thing. The real rate of interest will be around 3 to 3.5%.
All right, Bhairav Dalal, I think here there is a complete confusion. CREDAI believes completely a different parameter here. Bhairav Dalal, can you shed some light on this credit subvention so that we don't have everyone getting extremely excited about it? Mr. Ramachandran has actually, qualified what I believe this scheme is meant for, but what is your own understanding?
So our reading of the law and what our Prime Minister made a statement on 31st December, it pretty much the gentleman on the right from Tata Capital has summarized it well. our reading suggests that it is applicable to lower income groups and not to everyone, especially who's slightly above the lower income group. I don't think so it applies. So it is a restrictive thing. The Prime Minister also made it very clear that it is kind of restricted to the lower income group. So our reading is pretty much in line with what you two have pretty much analyzed right now.
All right, Gitambar Anand, why do you believe differently? Because you're saying mid-income group and we couldn't find anything to verify that or support that argument.
So I spoke to Chairman NHP today, post the budget, and we asked for a clarification of the announcement of the Prime Minister on the 31st of December, which said 4% interest discount on loan up to 9 lakh for people with annual income up to 12 lakhs, 3% subsidy on loan up to 12 lakhs for people with annual income of 18 lakhs. That means at a net present value, both figures come to around 2 lakh rupees, which are paid upfront to people who, and it goes further to say, for example, if you take a loan of 30 lakh rupees but have less than 18 lakh rupees annual income, you can avail the rebate in interest on the first rupees 12 lakh. For the rest, you have to pay the full interest as charged by your bank. And I think this needs to be taken, this clarification needs to be taken from the Chairman NHB, the MD NHB. I spoke to him this evening and he says that we have in the budget, the FM has announced 1,000 crores for this, and money is not a problem. As is required, it will be given. So this NPV of 2 lakh rupees is available to people with incomes of 12 lakhs and 18 lakhs also. It does not quantify the size of the house. It does not quantify
but
the quantum of loan. But that is already been taken
care of. 12 to, you're saying 12 to 18 lakhs?
No, the misunderstanding was that the loan has to be only 9 lakhs and 12 lakhs. Whereas that is not true. It says for the first 9 lakh rupees of the loan, this is the subvention you'll get, and for the first 12 lakh rupees of loan, this is the subvention you'll get. So therefore, you can have a loan of more than 9 lakhs or 12 lakhs, but you will get the NPV of this subsidy upfront, no matter how big the loan is, but your income has to be, it's defined, 18 lakh rupees per annum and 12 lakh rupees per annum. Now this has to filter down, right down to the middle income home buyers, because you know if we are not aware of it.
12 to 18 lakhs then makes it even a 50 lakh home affordable. I mean, if I take a simple rule of thumb on EMI. Okay, gentlemen, we'll wait for clarification. There's a lot more to discuss. I don't think we should get into it. So there are two opinions on it. Does it really actually open up the demand for middle income groups housing, or does it just encourage, pardon me, low income group housing? In that case, I think there is a supply which will have to match the demand. Very quickly, infra status in particular will allow larger access to funds. Explain to us, Mr. Razak, what kind of funds other than banks are you hoping that the sector will get?
No, apart from that, you can even borrow foreign funds. But then again, the problem with that is there's the exchange risk that you will have to take. But you see, now since we moved to infra, that status, what really happens is there's only a certain amount of money by banks kept for real estate. Now this, when you move from real estate to infra, there's a lot more funds available and earmarked by the banks for this sector. So hence the availability of funds will be pretty large. The cost of the funds also will be less. And like Niranjan rightly said, the overall period, repayment period also will be much longer. So all this is a big win which will help us to do larger developments because like you say, land is a problem. Now when you're getting large tracts of land, you can start looking at doing big townships, and this will help you to create these townships and also in the affordable segment. And I think this will definitely give a quality of life to people who are buying affordable homes, but at the same time will have the entire lifestyle amenities and facilities.
Now, the thing, of course, which probably doesn't have to be part of a budget document, but are there any concerns, gentlemen, around the approval process? Because, you know, again, the big concern I've been hearing from the industry, Gitambar, is that, you know, you might ease up all of that, but you still getting an approval for an affordable housing project takes equally or if not longer time than rest of housing, and the margins in affordable housing are so thin that it doesn't become viable.
Very true, Manisha, and in fact this is the reason why we went and asked for an extension of this 3-year period in this section
5 years. So
to
that
5
is
years.
covered?
No,
You're comfortable with that?
Yes, but what we need more is that the state should be more proactive in granting speedier approval. Now, for example, this environment clearance, this is a thing which takes the maximum time. For now in UP, what is happening is that there's an election on. A lot of approvals have been submitted to the State Environment Impact Committee for approval. Now, the code of conduct, somehow or the other, somebody's come up with this argument that the code of conduct disallows any meeting from being held for environment clearance for a real estate project or for any project for that matter. As soon as the elections are over, the committee which is sitting over there is disbanded because its term is finishing. For a new committee to be formed, it will take 1 year. What is going to happen for all these people who already submitted their approvals over there? Will they wait for a year? They bought the land, they've got the sanctions, they've got the maps are sanctioned. Will they wait for a year? This is what needs to change. And when the central government brought out a notification that you do not need to go to the State Environment Committee for projects of less than 1.5 lakh square meters, there was a PIL filed in the NGT unnecessarily, whereas the High Court in a judgment in 2010 in Delhi has maintained the fact that residential development or real estate development per se does not contribute to air and water pollution. What is this? Is this just some sort of blackmailing to real estate?
So what you're saying is that aspect of it still has to be taken care of. Anshul Jain, would you agree that that's a very big missing part, which at least you could have heard from the finance minister, that a message of sorts going out saying that we are hoping that states will comply in terms of fast tracking approvals for affordable housing?
I mean, it's a very valid point. I think with the approval process needs to clear up. I think and with RERA coming in, it becomes all the more important, because you can't have the government holding up that process and then penalizing the development industry for the delays. But clearly, I think with the focus of government that we've seen in this budget on housing for all schemes, whether it was announced in the budget or not, my belief is that that there probably is work happening in the background to clear that up.
All right, gentlemen, let's go on to now some of the big industry relief points which were announced in the budget today, and I'm going to quickly read these out. For builders whom constructed buildings are stock in trade, tax on notional rental income will only apply after 1 year of the end of the year in which completion certificate is received. There's also a reduction in the holding period for computing long-term capital gains from transfer of immovable property from 3 years to 2 years, which should be a big relief. Also, the base year for indexation has proposed to be shifted from 1981 to 2001 for all classes of assets, including immovable property, which of course is an investor's delight. I mean, you might probably see some investors coming back. I'll get the panel to answer that question. For joint development agreements signed for development of property, the liability to pay capital gain tax will arise in the year the project is completed. So, Bhairav Dalal, tell me, I mean, how relevant are these points for the industry? Do they really ease up their life? Are they big reliefs? And should the industry, I mean, I'm sure they're happy, but how joyous should they be?
So again, the devil is really in the fine print. So let's go one by one. The development agreement tax benefit of paying tax only on project completion is available only to individual landowners. So if you have a company which owns the land, which does a JDA with another developer, it's not available. So it's a very narrow universe of people who will be entitled to tax on project completion basis if you are a landowner. So even though it's a good thing, but again restricted to very few people. The good thing is about the 3 year to 2 year window. It certainly helps for people who want to claim long-term exemption and reinvest into another property. That's certainly a very positive one. The other one, which is income on notional property, I'm not sure if it's really a positive one, because until now a lot of developers had this argument that this is a stock in trade and therefore we don't need to pay any notional income tax, although we do have some rulings, especially Ansal Housing, Delhi High Court, which says that no, you still need to pay tax. We were expecting a positive clarification saying this is not something which the developers need to pay because it's stock in trade. It's come though it was put as a little positive, but I think it's a little negative for the industry, because now you'll be forced to sell all your unsold inventory within 1 year, or you need to pay tax. So there is a holding cost attached to the unsold inventory.
All right,
so it's a little negative in my mind for the industry as a whole.
Mr. Hiranandani, what's your opinion, sir? Out of these three reliefs that we seem to, which we've outlined for the industry, which ones do you think really work for the industry?
I think for the townships, the industry status is definitely useful. As far as the home loan segment, the people who are the investor segment, I think the 2-year loan is really going to be extremely beneficial. So I think, and the affordable housing focus of the 60 square meters and all is going to change the complete gamut of housing in India. So people who are doing 80 square meters, 90 square meters, 100 square meters carpet are all going to shift down to 60 square meters. I think that's a big directional push, something which I think was done very, very cleverly, and it automatically pushes all the people who are looking at this segment of housing into getting into the affordable segment. So I think as an incentivize, that is very good. The 30 square meters is stupid, so I think that needs to be removed. But all the rest of it looks really good in parts for different people. Okay. So a very positive move as far as affordable housing segment is concerned. I'm really happy that they are talking about it, thinking about it, and actually doing it. One more small thing I'd like to add. The infrastructure move which is happening is a second big beneficiary which is taking place. So all in all, if you look at another pattern which is involved, is that all the segments which have labor intensive, those are the ones where the incentive or the direction push has been taken place both in the government sector and the private sector. So if you look at infrastructure, roads, if you look at railways, if you look at housing, all these segments, whether government is doing it or private sector, those sectors which are labor intensive have been given, because manufacturing has not produced jobs as much as was expected looking at the amount of money. So rupee for rupee, a rupee put into housing and in roads and other infrastructure produces not only increase in GDP but also produces inclusiveness in terms of jobs. I think that focus has not been highlighted by anybody. It's a very, very big diversion into the whole factor which otherwise used to be manufacturing alone.
Mr. Hiranandani, that was exactly what I was going to read right up next and get your opinion, but I'm glad you've actually highlighted that 2.41 lakh crore which has been allocated to boosting infrastructure for transportation, and that big key point that sectors which are employment generators are the ones which have got highlighted in today's union budget. Stay with us, we'll come back and discuss that more, and of course the overall economic growth. Did you not feel that big sense of relief when the FM said the impact of economic degrowth because of demonetization is very short term? This is by 2018, this is going to get reversed or revived, and I think to me that was just music to my ears and to everybody in the industry, because that's what we need really to come back, for the demand in housing to come back. More on that when we come back. Stay with us on this budget special of Real Estate Debate on the Union Budget 2017. Budget 2017 for housing, overall fantastic for affordable housing. We've established that in our discussion with our panelists right before the break. But some of the expectations, which were of course very forceful, haven't been met. No new additional tax incentive for first-time home buyers. I think we got a bit spoiled because we got something last year. But more importantly, no raise in the cap of deduction on interest paid on home loans, and that has been a demand which has been there for a long time, and no additional benefit on house rent deduction limit. I'm going to go to Mr. Ramachandran. Mr. Ramachandran, I mean this limit, just look at the cost of housing. I think it would have really changed the dynamics, and the existing unsold inventory which is touching 55 months in certain parts or certain large micro markets of India would have got moving with just an additional tax benefit on interest paid. Would you agree? And has that been a big disappointment for you as a housing finance company as well?
See, I will give a little perspective. the interest rates have come down in the last 2-3 months, sub 9%. It has reached even 8.35 by some of the public sector banks, and the HFCs like us are offering around 8.65, 8.7%. The huge difference for the end real customer to go in for a housing loan, it gives a lot of encouragement and opportunity for them to own a house. And as far as the demand for the housings are concerned, the last 1 year, the lot of new projects have not come up. In that way, the expectations what we observe by having some discussions with stalwarts like Mr. Niranjan and Mr. Geetambar, that down the line 1 year, you will find solid the demand, that means the demand will exceed the supply. It would take place down the year or two.
I would love, okay, Mr. Ramachandran, hold your thought there. I think you've raised a very important point. If I look at the inventory overhang, and that has become a huge concern. Mr. Razak, would you like to come in here? The fact that it doesn't matter, you don't need an interest subvention or let's say interest relief anymore, not subvention, because your interest rates have now fallen to almost 8%, and with banks capitalized so much, HFC capitalizing, getting capitalized again, you will see them probably further come down, sub 8%, the taps on demand will open up. Are you expecting that to happen?
No, you see, Manisha, when we talk about inventory overhang, we must always analyze what type of inventory that is there which is not getting sold. If it's in the mid-income housing, I don't think there's any inventory overhang at all. It's only in the luxury segment where you will have certain amount of inventory overhang because that it's breached the affordable barrier. Having said that, now the last 2-3 months they have, because of demonetization and because of certain statements by a certain research houses, they said that the prices in one stroke.
Mr. Razak, I'm sorry, I've never interrupted you, but here's my question to you. Forget about, let's not talk to anybody. Here's an economic survey which came out yesterday claiming that real estate prices are going to fall, and that is the good part or benefit of demonetization. So let's not call media the culprit here or anybody else. Here you have an economic survey, and
that's not a survey, it's a statement by one person.
All right, a statement right after economic survey. At least you would give credibility.
It's a statement by an individual. It's not a survey.
Come on, all right, okay. My question is not whether the prices will fall or not. I'm not here to debate that. My question to you is, there is unsold inventory. Whether it's luxury which is not selling, fine, but there's still a substantial amount of inventory which is not moving in the market. Sales have fallen by 90-95% in certain categories. I'm not going to slice the pie here. Geetambar, you're saying we're going to reach a point where demand is going to exceed supply. Tell me how.
Let me explain.
How?
Let me explain. In the last 3 years, do you agree that the number of launches have fallen?
Sure.
Maybe in the last 4 years. Do you agree?
I agree.
That means there's no huge stock coming into the market. Whatever is there has been launched 5 years ago or 6 years ago. You know that in the NCR this is what has happened.
Right.
And in the rest of the country too. That means all the stock that was launched 5-6 years ago and which is now nearing completion, that is the stock which is available in the market, and the buyer today.
And more of it is going to get added in 2017.
No, please.
There will be some delayed projects, all of them coming up.
Give me a moment. All that stock is available in the market today, and the buyer rightly so is spoiled for choice. But this is the stock that there is. So there have been no new launches in the last 3 to 4 years. You agree with me on that? Whatever stock there is a stock.
Less new launches.
Very less.
Kolkata, in a market like Kolkata, and I do see figures,
Manisha,
the new launches have actually increased in the third quarter of 2016.
You look at the number of houses that have been launched. Let's look at the figures. So it's insignificant considering the kind of inventory which is now ready in the market. Now,
by the way, everyone in Bangalore and Mumbai is laughing and smiling at our debate, but go ahead.
They are laughing because I have the courage to interrupt you. So then, hear me out. Now, with the new regime of RERA coming in, let me assure you that the kind of launches we've seen in the past are not going to happen again for the next 2 to 3 years till people don't understand what RERA is. I'm talking about industry. So whatever there is in the market today is what you have. New launches there's no new land being manufactured in good locations. I've always been saying that on your show. The land that was there has already been launched.
All right, so you're saying there's no room to cut prices. Let's move on. Now, that's one part of it. My question, I think that's another day, another question. So, demand now. Let's come back to it.
Okay.
Sub 8% or around 8% of home loan interest. Is it good enough without getting any extra benefit of interest rebate?
Let me explain that.
Go
You
ahead.
see what happened before this, the home loan interest rates were hovering close to a 10%, right? On that 10%, a home loan borrower used to take income tax deduction on his interest paid, on principal repaid, etc., etc. So his eventual cost of the home loan used to drop to an 8.5.
Right.
Today, when the home loan rates have come to an 8 or maybe below, and let me tell you, nobody is mentioning the fact that the FM said that the NHB is getting 20,000 crores to
We read it out.
So, but let me emphasize it here. It's getting 20,000 crores to refinance HFCs. That means the rate of interests are going to come down further. And 8% or below 8%, if you have the same deductions that you had prior to this, your effective home loan rate and whatever benefit you were availing remains, if not the same, if not better, it still remains the same as what you had.
Right.
So therefore, because of the interest rates coming down, the subsidies that you were getting by way of interest deductions on income tax do not mean much today, because we are looking at an interest regime of 5 to 6%, home loan rate of 5 to 6%. That is what was the aim, to give these incentives.
All right. So you're confident that it will. Anshul Jain, come in here.
I think the economy has done its bit by reducing the interest rate, right? And the government, from a budget perspective, has done its bit. But
demonetization has played a great role in getting interest rates
absolutely,
down.
and you make some valid points to say the launches are going to be less because of RERA, etc. But I think the question still remains that, if you look beyond the top 10, 15 developers or 20 developers, as the case may be, right? There is, like, I'm sorry to say, but everybody and their grandmother have kind of jumped into the development industry, put together some kind of joint development or agreement with the
5 years ago,
and launched it, right? Now the question is, how do those projects get completed? Because the people's money is stuck in there, and therefore the confidence that the public needs to get, even an end user, to go and buy a project which has just been launched, I don't think is there. And that's where I think the developer community, I think the government's put that buck firmly back in your, kind of the ball firmly back in your court, in a development committee's court, to say, how do you actually now build that confidence so that the demand comes back?
Absolutely. So one is all the math you can do, and I'm sure we'll all continue to do the math. And the second is just to make sure that all the stuck projects get delivered. I think, gentlemen, all three of you are part, the stalwarts of the real estate industry, and I think the task now, or the baton, has been moved from the finance ministry to the industry per se, and nobody could have summed it better than Anshul Jain. All right, now let's move on. Housing done. I think the audience here and the viewers have made up their mind on what to do with their next purchase of a house. Now, overall economy, the fiscal deficit, growth likely to be at 6.75 to 7.5% says economic survey, but FM has assured us that we'll be back on track in 2018. Just sum up the macro picture for us. NIranjan HIranandani is very confident and very happy with the infra push. Mr. Zak, what would you pick up out of the macro things that have been announced today? Which ones do you like? And your concluding remark on the Union Budget 2017.
Yeah, see, the first thing is there's going to be a huge spend on infrastructure, which will kickstart the economy. There has been a focus on the poverty alleviation, agricultural spend. These are all positives which will definitely change the mood. Now, even I tell you, I will say for housing itself, there is a pent-up demand. Only the customer is confused because it's probably the one major investment he or she makes in their lifetime, and they don't want to make a mistake.
Sure. Absolutely. You've said that. They do not want to make a mistake.
Nothing happens. And once the trust confidence is there, and I have been in this industry for the last 30 years, I have not seen, see, we are not in a fragile economy like Dubai or an economy where there are less people and there are more homes. Here we have this problem of more people and less homes. So the question of demand drying up does not arise at all. It all depends on who's my target audience and how I address that target audience. Now again, a few more things in the budget that have done well is now reducing the timeline for long-term gain. Reducing it from 3 years to 2 years is a huge game changer. It will bring in the investor, the buyer for the secondary market, and the guy who was dependent in the secondary market to sell off at a gain and not show that gain. Now here he holds the asset for 2 years, he can come out clean, and this encourages them to sell at a full price and at the same time get the benefit of the growth in real estate.
The base has gone up, so you're saying investors will come back.
Yes.
You're confident, Mr. Razak, that investors will come back?
They definitely will come back.
All right, fair enough.
12% tax is what they'll pay.
Very quickly, Anshul, on the macro picture, what do you like?
For a landowner, just 1 minute, Manisha.
Go ahead, sir.
So the landowner who today was not unable to get into a joint development because without getting any money, without getting anything, he was getting into a joint development because he didn't have the wherewithal to develop his property. He had to pay capital gains tax the day he signed the agreement. Now, I must congratulate the central government to listen to us and understand it from an equitable point and removing the long-term capital gain at the time of signing the agreement and putting it when the project gets completed. There's total clarity now, no more court cases, and that will encourage a lot more landowners to get into JDAs. That means my raw material is taken care of. Now, these are the few pluses that have happened apart from the other things that have been done for affordable housing. So all in all, I believe that the government is serious about promoting real estate, promoting housing. The only thing that has to be taken care of today is the approval process where the local bodies, the state governments, all those come into play, and if they also play their role correctly, I think we've got good times to come.
All right, Mr. HIranandani, also extremely positive, good times to come. How quickly will those good times return, sir?
My view is slightly at a different tangent than what others are saying. My view is that in the next launch that will take place will actually be so large in the affordable housing segment that it is going to be unbelievable to be true. The growth in the affordable housing sector will be at least 50% growth compounded year on year for the next 5 years, because that is a segment where the demand actually exists. It's an unsatisfied demand. There is a huge amount of it, and along with infrastructure which is working on the periphery of the cities, especially in the case of Mumbai, Delhi, Gurgaon, all these other places, my view personally is that the growth in the affordable housing segment is going to be so large that we are all going to be surprised. So when you're saying that the housing starts are not taking place, my gut feel is in the next 2 years, the number of housing starts that you will see are going to be unbelievably large, but they will be in the affordable housing segment. If we don't do it, I don't do it, or the people...
We are now banking on affordable housing to really revive the industry, and all the stage is set for affordable, for private developers to get into it, and there is enough pent-up demand for everybody to flourish in this segment for a couple of years. Look at the figures here. I'm going to again say this. I mean, mission is to build 6 crore homes in urban and rural areas. Target, that means, is 85 lakh homes every year. Total homes completed in that segment is only, by December 2016, is 6,716. Total homes approved by the government, because the government can only do that much, is 15 lakhs. So imagine what an opportunity it is, and I hope everyone seizes upon it. Mr. Irfan Razak, NIranjan HIranandani, Gitambar Anand, Anshul Jain, Mr. Ramachandran and Mr. Dalal, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me, and let's keep a hope that everything that we have spoken about today actually plays out as we want it to and we hope for. I'm going to sign off on that note. Thank you so much for joining me, and goodbye.